Hey friends, this is Joseph Maynor. So what I want to do in this video is I want to wish everybody happy Thanksgiving, first of all. We're heading into the holidays now, so I know everybody is reconnecting with people that they love and people that they care about, people that they think are friends. I mean, this is very important. I often say that there's an aspect of conflict in truth, but there's not an aspect of conflict in love, right? And sometimes this can backfire on you, and that's just to be expected. I mean, not everybody's going to see eye to eye with you, right? If you're labeling somebody as something, you're operating on truth. In a way, you're kind of dismissing them, and it puts them in a reactionary state, potentially. But then also, I think one of the features of love is that it is true that you don't want to take everything personally or seriously because people will test you, people will argue against you, people will harass you, they'll bully you, and so on, right? And even online to a large degree. And we all do this to other people too. It's just the nature of ego. It's the nature of samsara. It's the nature of the way things show up in the dream or in experience. I think this is played with in certain ways to establish groupthink. And this is going to be a different opinion than most people probably would have on this. But I think one of the biggest features of groupthink is us versus them. That immediately coalesces a group. When a scapegoat or an enemy or somebody who's a heathen or something, dares to speak out, then they're going to be excommunicated or banned, just like Spinoza was banned from his religious community. Spinoza is a Western philosopher that is really important, but also has limitations too, and I'll talk about that maybe in this video, depending on how much content I have. I'm totally riffing now, and I wanted to make this video for a while. I made a couple of dry runs. I wasn't happy with them. It wasn't flowing. So this, I feel like I'm flowing now. So this is cool, Yeah, I think it, in a sense, is when you can pull the unrighteous out of reality and see them as people, paradoxically. That's kind of the ticket to ride with regard to love. So, for example, I was riding the bus, I don't know, maybe like a month ago after watching a movie. And actually, Back to the Future was in theaters, which is kind of cool. The original Back to the Future. I don't know if you guys have ever seen that. It's a good movie, and it's cool to see it in the theater. But there was a guy on the bus as I was going back to my house, and he looked like a hard guy. He had like the red shirt on. He had the chain. He just looked like a really tough guy. And he taps me on the shoulder, which usually I would consider to be just unusual to have somebody do that to you on the bus. And so I turn around and I look at him. He's a young guy. He's maybe like 19, 20 years old. And he's like, hey man, like, you could tell he's just like he's a hard guy, right? He's like, what's wrong with people up here? It's like everybody's like an NPC. And I'm like, what the hell is an NPC, right? Or something, and he said it's a bot. Everybody out here like acts like a bot. And I'm looking at this guy's face. I mean, he looks angry, right? He looks like he's really unhappy, really out of place, really young, doesn't know what to do. And so I just look at him and I'm just like, yeah, that is the way people are up here, man, in San Francisco. And the reason why is because And I'm not dogging anything about this city. I love this city. I live here. But just like other major cities in the world, there are a lot of people who move in and out of here of all kinds, and even people with mental illness, people with other kinds of problems, that when you live here, you almost develop kind of a detached mentality toward people because everybody is so asshole to belly button here. San Francisco is only 7 square miles, right? So 49 miles, right? It's like a box on the tip of the peninsula here. So, and he was so, all of his defenses melted down. And he's like, you know what, man? He's like, you're a cool guy, you know? Just because of the fact that I like related to him as a person. And he told me he's from Fresno, you know, he's trying to get everybody's attention. It's like nobody's listening to him. They've all pigeonholed him as bad or evil or something. And or maybe he had mental illness, or, you know, I mean, who's to say, right? But nobody was listening to him, and he was reacting to that. And the fact that I turned around and talked to him and listened to him, that made his night. You know, it was so amazing. And when he got off the bus, like, he thanked me, you know, just for being a cool guy, just because all I did was confirm the little bit of truth that he is expressing. Like, the worst thing you can do to somebody is deny their truth. You want to create an enemy? Tell everybody that they're wrong. This is the problem with truth, is that conflict flows by necessity. Look at all the religious wars, right? All the wars between, you know, scientists and common sense, between university professors and people who work for a living. It all comes down to people wanting to feel like they're right. And then that feeling like they're right sets up a community around that. So they create their own tribe with themselves as a spokesman. Like, you know, I'm giving the fatwa of this group. I'm giving the law. Actually, what you're doing is you're creating law. But you're doing it socially, not legally. Like, these are the things that are acceptable to talk about. These are the things that are not acceptable to talk about. These are the people who are wrong, who are stupid, who have error, and we feel like we're right in the sense that we're correcting people of that kind of error. Now, this is totally normal. You can see this, any group in reality behaves this way. Now, the thing I want to say, and I want to steel man this, and I want to be very compassionate in the way that I'm going to say this. But we all play social games. Period. Anybody who tells me that they don't play social games at all, like they're beyond conditioning, you know, they have the absolute truth, not just for them, but for other people. There's a karmic problem with this, and you can deal with it in a variety of different ways. You can hunker down, and you can try to purify your community of everybody who challenges you. Okay, that would be kind of doubling down on truth and finding the piglin in Minecraft reprehensible, right? Like untrue and also morally reprehensible. So it's okay to loot the piglins in Minecraft because you dehumanize them. See, or even deeper, you take away their status of being in the group. Now they're out of the group. And so it's okay to solidify the group by attacking this person as being flawed in some kind of a way. And groups will self-preserve and do this. So I'm making 2 points here. I'm making a point about the way groups work, and I'm also making the point that everybody is political. Now you may say to yourself, well, Joseph, let's dig into this. What do you mean by everybody? All right, so now there's 2 roles you can play here. You can play the role of the dissociator. This is the person who's going to pick you apart. There is no you, there is no self, there are no facts, nothing ever happened. There is no. While at the same time, paradoxically, proclaiming or posturing that they're right and you're wrong. Now, how would you deal with this kind of a person if you interacted with them in real life? It wouldn't go very far, right? It'd go like a minute if that person would kick you out. They can't handle it. But they also want to give the impression that they're beyond something with you. They're higher up than you. They trump you in a certain kind of way. Now, I would say that's on the more feminine, passive-aggressive side. On the more masculine side is the absolute preacher type. This is the person who pretends like their truth is everybody's truth. And they just arrogantly keep proclaiming this. So it's like both of these people are doing the same thing. They're doing like they're creating a social law. But when you create any kind of a law, there's going to be somebody who obeys the law and there's going to be somebody who doesn't obey the law. The person who doesn't obey the law is deemed to be evil or sinful or wrong. And because these people never get away from these communities, they're so attached, they have to perform this groupthink to hold this community together. They secretly want to rid themselves of all this groupthink. And there's a way to do this. The problem with the way of doing this is it requires something that almost nobody is willing to do. And that is the metaphor of the going and living in a cave. Now, what's the metaphor of going and living in a cave? You ever read the book Walden's Pond by Thoreau? The thing about truth with a capital T is that nobody can give it to you. Nobody can tell you what it is either. The most they can do is point to it. But ultimately, you have to find it. If it's not found, it's not worth anything. You're never going to have absolute truth. But absolute truth is just an archetype. Whatever you come to find as absolute truth is going to give you that superpower where, like, let's say you're walking down the street and somebody comes up to you and is like telling you like, hey dude, you don't have a head. And you're like, okay, and you keep walking. So people that are overly reactive and defensive about absolute truth, they don't have it. They're playing social games, but they want to pretend like they have it. Now, I don't want to be this like, I don't think it needs to be this, because now I'm doing the same thing, right? I'm castigating certain people as being wrong. Nah, it doesn't work like that, dude. I've done that too. Like I've started communities. I've been a member of community. I've supported somebody. I've been the flying monkey. I've been the useful idiot. I've been the person who's trying to say what's what. I've done it all. What I'm saying, though, is that I want to give, in the second half of this video, I want to give some features of absolute truth and sort of how to get beyond the limitations of truth, which is conflict and demonizing and limitation, so that you can move into love without sacrificing your truth. That's the key. You don't want to agree with somebody. You don't want to demonize somebody. Like if somebody came up to me and told me I only had one arm, I would look at them and I would go, cool, man. You know what I'm saying? And just walk right on by. You know, that it would be that simple. Like when you have absolute truth, there's no denying that you have absolute truth. You don't need anybody's approval. That's the feature of absolute truth. It's absolute. And there's no need to feel defensive with absolute truth. So, what gets you defensive about your truth is that it's not absolute truth. Because absolute truth is not defensive. There's no need to be defensive with absolute truth. Now, this idea that there's, good or bad ways of acting. I think that's true to a certain extent. It depends on what you're trying to do. It is relative to a certain extent to ego. So I think you do have to see that, like, the idea that you don't have an ego is probably one of the biggest lies that you tell. Because you're trying to retain groupthink, and you're trying to retain yourself as an authority over a group or within a group. But the reality is, like, let's say you went off and you lived in a cave for 60 days. Here's my argument. Those of you guys who have worked on spiritual enlightenment for a long time, you've done a lot of psychedelics, you are wise, right? You're considered wise online, and you're giving lots of really great, opinions sometimes online. You're just the right kind of person for this treatment. And what you do is you completely get away from spiritual books and from spiritual discourse for 60 days. And you just do your normal life. You break the addiction because you're addicted to that. You're addicted to these communities. You're addicted to the narratives. You're addicted to the groupthink. You're addicted to your role as an authority. All these things you're addicted to, right? So when you break yourself away from this, and I've done this actually, both voluntarily and involuntarily. I've been like, disagree with certain people in their community, and they ban me for 30 days or 60 days or something like that, or even permanently. I don't agree with anybody. Don't disagree with anybody, and also don't agree with anybody either. So truth is not about the person or the teaching. It's about truth. Truth goes beyond teaching. Truth with a capital T goes beyond teaching. So what I'm going to do here, actually, I was participating with some discussion on this these last couple of weeks, or this last week, and somebody, I usually try not to teach unless somebody asks me to teach. So somebody asked me, is there something that you grok with truth? Or is that itself the problem? Like there's some kind of experience, or direct experience even, or perception of truth with a capital T. And it forced me to step back and think about this. The first thing that I came to the conclusion of is that absolute truth is 100% constant. You don't have to do anything to attain absolute truth. Because absolute truth is, and you feel it. Now, the fact that I'm using language, and this is one of the things that I realize is like, the more you try to use language to describe this, actually the worse it gets. But I also look at it too, instead of saying there is no, there is no, there is no, or there is, like, look, people aren't stupid, it's like you can give people a pointer and that pointer might just be enough for them to find something that you're talking about, right? That just can't be talked about in words. But absolute truth has to do with the self. It has to do with being. It has to do with identity. But it's not identity as a thought. It doesn't have anything to do with thought, because it's always there. Notice that thought isn't always there, but absolute truth is always there, even when thought isn't there. So you have to be real careful with thought, and you also have to be real careful with feeling too, because feeling can be egotistical too. If you're just trying to emotionally self-regulate your emotions, that's like you're creating as an ego. That's what you're doing. If you're a spiritual teacher, that you're creating as that ego of being that spiritual teacher. And so absolute truth is there all the time. And absolute truth is not confused in any kind of a way. So you don't need to go through a process of enlightenment. What you need is realization. And to say realization of what? People are always going to ask you that, because they're always going to accuse you of just being a spiritual ego or being a narcissist or being a controller or something like that. But there's a reason why those of us who are on the path just for spiritual enlightenment and awakening are on the path. We wouldn't be doing this otherwise. Why would we be wasting our time doing this? It doesn't make any sense. So there is something. There is. So the idea that like there is no or there is, right? There is, but it's can only be found, I want to say, within. But again, that's a pointer, because the within and without duality is also present too. So everything I'm saying is a pointer. What I want to tell you guys is, don't become so fixated on there is not or there is. You have to get away and find what absolute truth means for you. Get away from all the groupthink. And the groupthink is deeper and more present than you acknowledge too. Like it's real easy to be in groupthink and then it's this is the issue of projection. Like I feel that something is wrong, but I'm going to pin it on another instead of do the work myself to release that trauma or that burden. Because again, like if somebody came up to me and they said, "Hey Joseph, you only have one nostril," I'd be like, "Cool, man. Have a good day." Like it would just be like, you would know. There would be no need to fight with anybody. The only reason why you're fighting with people is because that's how your ego is creating in reality. So you don't want to see this. You don't want to acknowledge that this is how your ego is creating. You want to assume that you are the absolute. Because there's really no duality between the creator and the created. And this is going to trigger a lot of people. This issue of the self triggers a lot of people because people want to assume a duality between the self with the lowercase s and the self with an uppercase s, instead of realizing this is a thought, it's a doctrine, it's a dogma. And you're never going to get away from these kinds of dualities and really find out what absolute truth is unless you go away for a while. You're so conditioned and you're so needing to condition that it's just not going to happen. But once you do, then what happens is that you can come back into life. It's like the Zen master saying, chop wood, carry water. So once you have absolute truth, if you have it, you don't need it. You're not seeking it anymore. So now you're free to not be defensive about creating, including with thoughts, feelings, words. It's all just creation. And you can accept other people's creations, other networks' creations, tribes, individuals. But you can also see too, I want to use a nice word, but like the inconsistency of what people say and how they show up in the world as a person. And that's entirely persona. The design there is to enforce groupthink and maintain groupthink so that I get to be important. I get to be in control. And we all do this. There's no need in pointing fingers at other people, of castigating other people, scapegoating other people. Everybody does this. The point, though, is that when you find absolute truth within yourself, you now have a gateway opening into love. The gateway opening into love is that I can choose not to react. And I can choose not to react in a conflict way, or in a kind of a you're right, I'm wrong way. You're never going to make friends and influence people that way, because somebody's got to agree with the other person in order for that relationship to work. Instead, you can say, I'm cool, man. You know what I'm saying? Like whatever you guys want to believe, that's fine too. If asked, I'll give my opinion. If not asked, I'm perfectly happy without saying anything. Unless I'm growing or unless I'm teaching. And I've actually moved more into coaching now instead of teaching for this very reason, because teaching really is the trap. Once you start teaching, your ego just really becomes a problem. And there's no way to get out of this except for to stop teaching. So, but if somebody's not going to stop teaching, then there's no sense going up against them or arguing with them, because they have to win. That's exactly what's holding their groupthink together. Without that fatwa, from the leader, the group really doesn't know what to do. And it leads to all kinds of like power struggles and different factions and different kinds of things in a group. But don't deny the fact that you're dealing in groupthink if you are. Like, let's get beyond this sort of like pretending we're not doing something that we're doing. It's much better when you admit that everybody does this, and then you can move into, recognizing everybody as a conscious creator in their own way. Okay, friends, hopefully this is a good video. I'll talk to you soon. Take care.